Stand by.
264.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hi, Curtis. Hi, Mariella.
Hello.
Ellie, I promise not to forget the district attorney's office this month. My apologies last month.
No, we understand. Thank you.
Hi, Ellie.
Hi, Jackie. How are you?
Good.
Nice to hear from you again.
Yes. Thanks to Curtis.
Of course.
Bring people together.
Yes.
We got Danielle, Mariella, myself. Nice. 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. All right, let's see here. Danielle, Christian, Perez, OC Cabinet. All right, so I think, do we have someone from Christian Perez? Is the 35th precinct here?
Hi, yes, Lieutenant for the 3-4.
Lieutenant Perez. We have Deputy Inspector Bello here from the 3-3. Do we have someone here from Transit Division yet?
Correct.
Alrighty. So we don't have Transit Division here yet. Let's see here. If you are from one of the agencies, please raise your hand in the attendees section so we can move you over. Okay, Brian Shivitz.
Hello,
Yes, which agency are you from?
I'm Officer Phillips from the NYPD.
Okay, 34th precinct?
No, from Transit District 3, from
Okay,
the
perfect.
subways.
That's exactly what we needed. Okay, cool, perfect. So it is 7:04. Danielle, may I ask that for the past year now, I've been taking the minutes for our committee meeting because I've realized it's been a challenge for everyone to be remote and to take minutes, and I've been doing them. So I want to start off by asking someone else on the committee to volunteer to take the minutes for the month of March. Do we have a volunteer from the committee?
That's so nice. It really adds a lot, and it's great for the other girls also.
Rabbi Kalinsky, you're
And Baruch Hashem, Kanai Dahara. We have so much nachas.
Rabbi Kalinsky, could you mute yourself? Do we have a volunteer from our committee to do the minutes? The good thing about everything being live is that you can go back and rewatch it and take the minutes later. You don't have to do it actively today. Is there a volunteer? Okay, Mariella, we have a volunteer. Perfect. We can work together afterward. You'll have the link and you can rewatch it. And I'll also share with you the template that I use for the minutes. All right, without further ado, it is now 7:05. We have a quorum. We are going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. Is there a motion to accept the agenda that was sent out?
Motion.
Okay, Danielle,
Oh, sorry.
there's a
Go
motion.
ahead, Danielle.
Danielle, second by Ellison.
Yeah.
All right,
Second.
perfect. Cool. 7:05, officially beginning. My name is Curtis Young. I am the chair of the Public Safety Committee for Community Board 12. I'm going to pass it over to my committee members to announce yourself so we know exactly who's on from the committee. Starting with who I see in the right, that's Mariella.
Hi, my name is Mariela Graham, and I am part of this committee.
Danielle Jeremy, assistant chair.
Jose Caminar.
Thank you very much. And I believe not on screen, we have a few others. I'll announce you. We have, yeah, there we go. Rabbi Yosef Kalinsky, who just turned his video on. So welcome, Rabbi. We also have Gabriela Estrella, who just joined as well. Gabriela, there you are. Perfect. We have a quorum. We're going to go ahead and get started with a few announcements. So first of all, thank you all for joining. We're going to have a discussion this evening on public safety, something we are, I guess, a specialist in, being the Public Safety Committee, and hopefully just have a dialogue and learn a little bit more about what is happening around this subject matter, and perhaps learn how we can serve the community and better advocate for the new changes that could be happening in the next few months. There's a lot of talk about reimagining public safety, so we wanted as a committee to invite a panel and those who could offer additional points on this topic. I also want to announce that April, I am not going to be present for the committee meeting. It's my first time missing a meeting, so I'm going to pass the torch to my assistant chair to lead that meeting and to manage the agenda process. If Danielle, if you're available, we can talk offline. If you're not available, we would have to have another committee member to take the lead for the month of April. The reason being is that I will be away from the city. I am really excited to share that my brother, who's been incarcerated for 10 years, is being released from prison April 14th.
Oh.
So I am going to be in full family mode. I'm going to be traveling to the facility where he's being released and helping him get set up. And also being there to help him get set up where he's going to be doing his parole, which is my mother's home. So she needs a lot of help. So I will be away for April because of that. And although I can join via Zoom, I prefer to just be focused on family and getting him, because it's such a big transition to having been incarcerated for 10 years and coming back to community. So that is the reason I'm going to be absent for the month of April. And hopefully, Danielle, you accept the opportunity to lead the committee. All right, perfect. So with no other announcements to share, we're going to move on to our agency update, starting with the 33rd Precinct.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Deputy Inspector Charlie Bello from the 33rd Precinct. Just a quick update in regards to a couple of things. About 2 weeks ago, we took a shooting on 162 in Fort Washington. Initially, we thought the shooting was part of a bigger citywide pattern affecting the 3-4, the 4-6, the 4-3, certain commands in the Bronx and even in Queens. It was a vehicle that matched the description in a 3-4 shooting in hours, but we were able to get additional videos and able to determine that it was a road rage incident that went bad and the victim was shot. Fortunately for us and for everyone, he was able to survive. For the 28-day period, we've been doing relatively well. We've still been battling the whole package theft crimes that we spoke about the last meeting. Like I've explained to you guys before, we normally take it as a petty larceny, and we're able to determine that the individual did not live there, then we'll upgrade those crimes to burglary. So last year, those type of crimes comprised the majority of our burglaries. We were up over 100% in burglaries last year.
Oh, it's done.
But for the 28-day period, we were able to make an apprehension and close several patterns with individuals that we were able to identify doing these package theft related burgs. About a week ago, we had a meeting in regards to noise complaints and how we're going to tackle it this summer. So, you know, the roving bans, I know that is a particular issue. So we actually got some guidance and memo and policy from the department and from the borough personnel in regards to how we're going to tackle it. So it's going to be a similar approach to what we had last summer, recording with body worn camera, seeing if we'll be able to generate wanted flyers, where they're stashing these type of bikes. So just to give you one primary example on how difficult it is for us to be able to confiscate these bikes, we took an incident about a week ago where an individual was shot at by a roving band. We were able to get video from YouTube on the location where they might be possibly stashing their bicycles. So we took a ride over there. We spoke to the owner. They confided in us and told us that there are approximately 100 bikes that are stored in that facility. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get a search warrant via the district attorney's office. So our plan moving forward is to possibly do a joint operation with FD or DEP, because apparently there are rules and regulations that prevent these facilities from storing anything that's propelled by gas. Unfortunately, from their end, all they could do is just advise the owner that they need to remove these bikes. We cannot either check the VINs to see if these bikes are reported stolen, because we will need a search warrant in order for us to be able to do so. So our plan is to see if we could post what is called a pole camera or camera at this particular location, see if we could gather any intelligence, maybe, you know, prepare some type of complaint report for reckless endangerment if we do observe them doing such acts. And hopefully if we see them performing that, you know, the felony reckless endangerment and then storing the bikes at these particular location, hopefully that's enough evidence or information for the district attorney's office to give us a search warrant, execute the search warrant, and at least confiscate the bicycle. So our policy here is record via body worn camera, see if we could get as much information on the bicycle or the vehicle itself. The last 3 or 4 days, we have prepared 3 reports, and we have ID'd 3 individuals that in the future will be apprehended for reckless driving and things of that nature.
Thank you very much, Inspector Bello. We do have a question. I'm gonna take a few questions. We have one from Jackie Adams and one from Cheryl Miller. So Jackie, you're first.
Okay, yeah. So once we check. Yeah, then we can get started, please.
If you're not speaking.
And I spoke to Dr. Palmer too. He's jumping on.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Jackie, was that a question you have? You have a question. Okay. Are you ready to pose your question now?
Yes.
So I think we should introduce our.
I didn't have a question. I just wanted to say, hi, Inspector, you're doing a wonderful job. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Jackie, nice seeing you.
Okay. All right. Cheryl Miller. Cheryl Miller? That means you should move her over. Yes.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Okay, I couldn't hear because everybody's talking and people are not muted, and it's very distracting. Anyway, thank you. Good evening, everybody. So, Inspector Bello, this is Cheryl Miller. I had 2 questions for you. First of all, I'm glad to hear this update about the bikes because it's starting up all over again. I mean, it's been constant, but now that the weather is changing, it's picking up more and more now every day. I did have a question as far as what is being done about the cars that are drag racing. I saw something on Twitter yesterday, the 50th precinct that's in Riverdale, the 50th precinct, they had a post that they caught a car that had been drag racing. It was a red car that had black on it and all the windows were blackened, which that's illegal. And they said they confiscated the car and they summoned the driver. They were crediting their traffic unit. Okay, so I would like to know why the 33rd precinct does not have a traffic unit such as the 50th precinct does, and also the 102nd precinct in Queens. They too have a unit that deals with the cars that are drag racing. Also, these bikes, these illegal bikes with the mufflers and all of that stuff. So I'd like to know, is this something that the 33rd precinct can implement? And Why is it not being implemented? Is it something that just requires more manpower? If this is something that possibly the 33rd precinct can bring to either whoever it is, Commissioner Shea or the chief of police, to have something like that implemented up here?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Inspector Bello?
I'm not sure what team she's referring to, and she mentioned the traffic unit, but the 3-3 does have a traffic unit in play. And usually when we do our operations, when it could be when it has to do with like drag racing and things of that nature, we actually incorporate our traffic unit. We have a traffic unit that works in each tour, day tour, 4 to 12, and the midnight shift. Usually when I get some type of complaints, illegal parking and things of that nature, especially like 165 and Broadway, Jamel Place, that's who I reached out to, and they're basically responsible of making sure that the car gets ticketed, towed, or just vouchered if that's the case. So I'm not sure if these particular precincts is a different traffic unit, but the 3-3 does have a traffic unit with 1 sergeant and 7 cops.
Can I just ask one more quick question? I'm sorry,
Yes.
one more other question.
Very
I'm
quickly.
sorry. Quickly, yes. Okay, so the last public safety meeting last month, Inspector Bello, you had mentioned that there was 109 noise complaints coming from West 164th Street and Broadway with a car that's just going around and around and around and blasting the music. I didn't get to ask a question. I didn't get to address that the last meeting. I would like to address that now. What is being done? Because I'm pretty sure that the same car is coming around on my block over here, where I'm 1 block away on West 165 and Broadway. And this is every day. Sometimes 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm hearing it, and it can go all day long into the evening. What is being done about addressing 109 noise complaints coming from 1 block is outrageous. And what is being done about it? Why is it not being addressed?
So what I have my NCOs open up a companion case, a self-initiated companion case. They're actually the ones responsible of conducting their investigation. On the vehicle that you're referring to, we actually have it ID'd, we have a plate, and we have generated a complaint report for the arrest of the actual driver. As I previously mentioned, we actually have 3 of those complaints that we've generated the past 3 days, where our cops attempt to stop someone that has an illegal temporary license plate. When they make the attempt, the person takes off. My policy with them is to not pursue. So what we do is we'll run that plate to see if an individual has been issued the summons, to see if it's legit. And if it comes back to the register owner, we'll match whatever prior arrest that person has in their history to the footage that we receive from the body worn camera or from the individual that the officer observed. So just to give you some numbers, the last 3 or 4 days, we have prepared and generated 3 complaint reports on reckless driving of these type of situations.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go to, we have 2 additional questions for the 3-3, and then I will need to move on to the 3-4 because I want to start as soon as possible with our presentations for the evening. So Bernard, you're up next, followed by our committee member, O.C. Kaminer. And Chanel, is there a way for you to make me a co-host so I can manage moving people over as I see them and all that jazz?
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out, but this is like a new account, so it's like I feel like
You should be able to look, hover over my name and on the and
I'm not seeing the option, so I have to call Ebenezer.
okay, all right, thank you. Okay, Bernard, you're up next, followed by OC.
Okay. Yeah. Hi. Hi, Inspector. Okay. So in all deference to the 50th and the 33rd, I read that article about what had happened there. I mean, the guy T-boned an Uber going at 70 miles an hour with his foot on the gas all the way down, with his foot all the way on the floor, and then escaped, I think. And they tracked him down because he had the guy was a complete idiot. He had a vanity license plate and a custom painted Charger, and put it up on YouTube. So I mean, just to say, I get how hard it is to get these people. And what I was wondering about was, why would the DA not give you a warrant for those bikes? because they're used in crimes as well. So I was wondering why that would happen, or if you have an answer. I mean, you may not have an answer for that because.
Yeah, I think in this particular incident, the individuals that we were looking for, we didn't have them on video actually entering this particular facility, but the owner and the employee of that facility confided that there are over 100 bikes that are stashed there. Now, mind you, most of these bikes are legal. You could legally purchase them or legally possess. So it's in order for us to be able to ascertain if the VIN or the bike has been stolen, we would need to search, and we would need a reason to search. So we couldn't pinpoint the guys that we were looking for as entering, but we were able to view YouTube video where people were stashing these type of bikes at these particular facilities. So what we're gonna do is we actually reached out to our personnel at the borough. We're gonna try to see if we could do try to ascertain how many facilities, storage facilities we have in Manhattan North, and perhaps either have the NCO open up a case or do a joint operation with FD or Department of Buildings, because the regulations are that they are not allowed to store any property that is propelled by gas. So that's kind of like where we're at now. So in our particular incident, what we're thinking about doing is possibly putting what is called a pole camera at this particular location to see if we could gather any intelligence. And if we do spot them acting recklessly and they do go into this particular facility, then perhaps there'll be enough for the district attorney's office to give us a search warrant. But as of now, since it's not connected to our particular crime, we don't really know if those bikes are stolen or not. So that's the reason why they didn't want to give us the search warrant. And I agree with it.
Thank you very much. OC Kaminer.
Okay, I just want to mention that there is a resident trying to ask a question, Alan Gardner. Maybe you can promote him.
Alan, could you move over, Alan? But Alan has been communicating in the chat box as well. So Alan, I'm going to have you yield. We're going to move over more people once we start the discussion portion, the presentation portion. Just hold off, please. All right, so we're going to go to the 34th precinct now.
Good evening, Lieutenant Taveras here.
Good evening.
So I'm going to give you the breakdown for the 28-day period. Murder, we have 1 against 0 for 100% increase. Rape, 3 versus 0, 300% increase. Robbery, 10 versus 17, 41% decrease. Felony assault, 20 versus 19 for a 5% increase. Burglaries, 12 versus 6 for a 100% increase. Grand larceny, 42 versus 47 for a 10% decrease. And grand larceny autos, 13 versus 8 for a 62% increase. I also wanted to update you regarding the shooting robbery that we took last month on 153 Seaman Avenue. I wanted to inform you that 2 arrests have been made on that robbery. On the burglaries, we have been able to identify a subject. He's responsible for 3 of our burglaries. A wanted flyer has been issued, so the warrant squad is looking for him, and the precincts are aware of this person. Regarding the noise, we also have seen a little increase on noise in the 3-4, and we are addressing it as it comes. 9th Avenue, I don't know if anybody's in that area. In the past 10 days, people started coming here and setting up the speakers and playing the music. And I just want to inform you that over 10 summonses have been issued in that area.
Okay.
The NCO continue to monitor the area.
Thank
That's
you.
all I have.
Thank you very much. So there was a question. I was going to go to your question that we discussed, Danielle. I'm not sure if that's the same point you're raising. Okay, good. I'll turn it over to Danielle first. And let's see, we have Danielle, Mariella, and then followed by OC.
Hi, just quick question. I've noticed a car on Vermilia near Academy and 204 for the past couple of weeks. I was just wondering what that's about.
Oh, correct. Also, there was a fight approximately 10 days ago, right there in front of 64 Vermilion Avenue. Pretty much, there is two groups that appear to be engaged in illegal activity. So for some reason, they had a beef. There was a fight, and there was a male that was shot. We have identified one person as the shooter. However, the victim is not cooperating with us. We know who the person is, but we need the victim to come forward.
This is like
And that's the reason why the car is there is trying to minimize any illegal activity taking place in the block.
So it's minimizing illegal activity, or it's trying to identify who the shooter.
No, we know who the shooter is. We already know. However, the victim needs to identify him. But we are pretty sure who the shooter is, and our officers are aware of who this person is.
Thank you.
Okay, Mariela.
Hi, I remember last month we had talked about felony assaults and we had asked if it could be broken up. I don't remember all the categories, but stabbings was one of them. And so I was wondering if you had specific information about those 20 felony assaults. I don't remember all the categories that we discussed, but at least how many of them were stabbings.
So out of the 20 assaults that we have, 6 were domestics. None of them were any sharp instrument. From the 14 non-domestic, only one was the stabbing, and that was that person in the train that was found on 207 with the emotionally disturbed person. That an arrest was made on the same day. Actually, my NCO team was the one who apprehended the person, the emotionally disturbed. That was the only stabbing.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Along those same lines, I want to just share that someone came to our community board general body meeting last month and shared that they had found a knife at one of the subway stop, at the train stops. I don't recall which one it was, but obviously, I think to Mariela's point, there's an increase in this sort of behavior in all parts of the city. There was a pattern in the 33rd precinct of someone robbing or stabbing people or presenting a knife and robbing people as well. So it's something to be aware of. And I mentioned to the person that I would share that publicly at our public safety committee meeting as well. So
just an FYI in regards to the stabbing and perhaps the one reason to why we might be noticing a spike. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but back in the days, we would be able to charge someone with criminal possession of a weapon if we observed them in possession of a gravity knife. So gravity knives are no longer illegal, and that's the reason why you might notice an uptick in felony assaults related to stabbings.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty, OC coming in.
Just want to note before my question that Curtis, this was on the A train. I think it was Dykeman Street A train, the incident that you're referring to.
Oh yeah, so it was a Dykeman Street A train, and what happened was one of our community members was getting on the train and discovered a knife hidden, because as you know, sometimes people don't carry their weapons on them. They hide them in places, and when they need them, they go get them. So this weapon was actually hidden, and this person who was walking by saw it, took a picture of it, and actually tweeted. I recommended that they call 911, which they did. Send me a message privately to say that they did call 911 to share the location. And hopefully it was removed and found, but they did come forward with that information. It was like hidden in one of the little corners in the platform somewhere, so it can easily be picked up. And it's dangerous because a child could also find it and pick it up. But you want to pose your question now, Ozzy?
Yeah, so it's actually more like a comment. That I think this month it's exactly a year since we heard for the first time that there was animal abuse case on Nagel Avenue. But we still don't have any information about that.
Yeah.
Even though we asked a number of times. So I want that to be reflected in the minutes
Okay, yes, that can be reflected in a minute. And I just want to add that I've learned over the course of my time here is that, and just also by learning from the precincts. So once, many times once the case is closed, there is not much interaction with that particular case after the case is closed. I'll let the precincts comment on this, but that is my understanding that sometimes it becomes a bit of a challenge to go back into the system to give particular updates on particular cases that may have been moved on from that original officer who took the complaint or was the lead investigator. Correct me if I'm wrong if you're from the precincts, but that seems to be what the trend is. That is not as the follow-up is it may be a challenge getting the follow-up because they moved on to other cases.
It's not everybody has access to get updates on a case. A commanding officer would, the squad detectives would, but a lieutenant or sergeant or a cop might not have what we call ECMS access to ascertain what's going on. So if I take a report today, once it's entering the system, they won't be able to have access to a system to see what the status is. I do as the commanding officer, so I'll be able to enter the complaint report and I'll be able to see what information was entered by the detective or whatever unit is investigating the crime. But a lieutenant or a sergeant might not have that capability. So if you do ask a lieutenant or a sergeant for an update, they're probably going to have to go to their commanding officer or whatever detective is assigned to the case to get those updates. So it might become a little bit more difficult for them to have access to that information.
So with that being said, I think we've learned that we have to send follow-up questions to particular individuals. The 34th precinct, we have a great relationship with the precinct. We can always get responses from the 33. The 34th, we have it's not the same. So we just have to be a little bit more intentional about sending follow-up messages or questions to particular people and making sure that they're CC'd on the emails. The commanding officer of the 34th in particular. Moving forward.
But we ask a number of times. It's not that we ask, this is the first time we're asking about it. We ask a number of times, and this is really important to know. For all of you here, I just want to mention one thing, that since 2014, the ASPCA no longer investigate animal cruelty. It moved to the NYPD for one big reason. Sometimes people that abuse animals end up making the leap and abusing people. So that's why it's really important to get information about that. And when you hear about animal abuse, don't just, oh, animal abuse, who care? Mm-hmm. Like, we should all care about that. That's the point.
I have citywide access, Charlie Bello. So if you guys have a particular question regarding a crime, it doesn't really matter where, just shoot me an email. I'll look into it and then I'll reply. I'll give you an update in regards to the case.
Okay, great. I will send you a follow-up message after this, Inspector Bello, and I'll CC you, OC, so we can get a follow-up. Yeah, great, perfect. All right, so we're going to move forward. We were hoping to start at 7:30 with our next portion, but we're running a little bit behind. So we're going to go to Transit Division now. Transit Division, actually, I have particular questions for you all that were sent to me in advance that I shared with you all as well when I sent out around the agenda. And they came from our Transportation Chair, Debbie Navabian. There's been a pattern of businesses, commercial vehicles being parked in residential places. And obviously, we have a parking issue uptown. So I sent two examples. I think one is 207 and the other one is like 190th. So what is being done to enforce this issue? You can give a general update on anything else, but I want you to answer this question in the context of your presentation, your update. What is being done for enforcement of commercial vehicles that are parked illegally overnight, particularly in areas where they should not be parking overnight, taking up residential spaces? So that's my question for Transit Division while you give your update. Officer Burks.
Hey, Curtis, Transit is not going to be able to answer that question because they only deal with transit-related crimes. Maybe the 3-4 might be able to answer it if it's like a 3-4 location, or I could answer it if it's 3-3, but I didn't know.
I think Officer Burks is from Transit Division, right?
Yes, I'm from Transit District 3, but what you're referring to right now, that's top side, that's not within transit.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, well, Inspector Bello, can you help me out here?
Yeah, I think the location within the 3-4, Normally what we do in the 3-3 is we go and we ticket the particular vehicle, but just throwing it out there, we've been having extreme difficulties trying to tow vehicles. I tried towing 2 vehicles about, I want to say like 3 or 4 days ago. We made the phone call about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, and the tow trucks didn't respond until 8 or 9 at night. I think it has something to do with the particular facility. I think there was something in the paper where we lost the tow pound in Manhattan. So now it's spread out throughout the city. So sometimes it takes a long time, several hours and even several shifts for us to get a particular response. Even in our precinct, we have about 35 to 40 cars that we've confiscated, either because we've towed or because we made apprehensions, arrests, and things of that nature. And it's taken us some time to be able to get those vehicles from our facility to the tow pound. So, you know, those are some of the dynamics. So I know a lot of people complain, and when we do issue the tickets, I can't have a date to a cop waiting for 7 or 8 hours for a tow to respond. So normally what we do is we write the ticket, we provide them with our callback, and whenever they give us an ETA of 30 minutes, then I'll send a car or a unit to await the tow company.
Okay. So what advice do you have for residents excuse me. What advice do you have for residents who need to file a complaint? They're coming home from work late at night, they can't find a parking because of commercial vehicles. What should they do in that situation for people who are listening and and to be reflected in the minutes as well?
Right. So for the 3-3, our policy is I'll have either my traffic guys go out there, and we definitely issue the parking ticket. We'll run the plate to see if the register owner lives in the vicinity, and maybe we'll knock on his door just to tell him to move the vehicle. And if that doesn't pan out, once we write the ticket, we'll make the notification for the vehicle to be towed. Unfortunately, like I said, sometimes it takes about 8 to 9 hours just for us to be able to get a tow company to actually remove that particular vehicle. So that's some of the issues that we've been having. So it's not that we're neglecting it. Once the summons is issued, we'll make the notification, and then we'll provide them with our contact number. And whenever they have an approximate ETA in responding, then we'll send a sector over so they'll be able to oversee the tow. Because the vehicle needs to be voucher, so that when the owner goes to try to retrieve the vehicle, we know in fact that the vehicle was towed and not stolen.
Okay, thank you. I think her concern was that there was a lack of enforcement for these particular issues, and that she wanted to see that change. So I will share that information with her this evening. All right, so we're going to move on to, we don't have anyone from FDNY, but I want to move over to the district attorney's update. Ellie Sylvester.
Good evening, everyone. Ellie Sylvester from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Thank you for having me tonight. I have 2 quick updates. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, given that you do have a presentation tonight. The first one is that in collaboration with NYPD and Community Board 9, we will be hosting a second gun buyback event, and it's going to be taking place on March 27 from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we're super excited about it. The event will be hosted at Convent Avenue Baptist Church, which is located at 420 West 145th Street. And I do understand it's not under the confinement of Community Board 12. However, we do appreciate and we love the outreach in support, because gun violence affects every community. And we hope to have a very successful event. Actually, Jackie was in one of the calls where we are discussing outreach and, you know, planning this event. And I don't have a flyer because at the last event, we're trying to increase the money amount for each gun, which is why we don't have the flyer. We're working really hard with NYPD to see if we can get approval, because we understand that the incentives are a good way in order to attract people. So as soon as I have the flyer available, I will send it out to you, Curtis, and Community Board 12, so they can e-blast it. I do hope at the last event we were able to get at least 40, I believe 48 guns, and I am trying to tap that amount. This event again will be hosted in West Harlem, and I understand that it's not under Community Board 12, but we will definitely appreciate the support, and it is in collaboration again with Community Board 9 and NYPD. The second announcement is that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office is currently accepting applications for our summer high school internship programming. Last year was my first time working with our young people in our internship program, and it was such an amazing opportunity and experience. Our young people had the chance to not only learn about the criminal justice system, but they also had the opportunity to come up with their own ideas, policies, and opinions about the criminal justice system, which I think is great. They also had the chance to present to the DA himself and also executives, ADAs in our office. And again, I think it's an amazing opportunity, and I would love to see more people from my community in this program. And it's not your typical programming where you need to have the best application In order to be elected, we want to have people from our community. So if you know of a young person that will benefit from this program, just speak to me after this meeting, send me an email, send me a text message, and we can definitely work together in order to make sure they have their resume ready, they have their interview skills ready, because we are not trying to dismiss anyone. We're actually trying to have as many people as we can. So we will work with a young person in order to be in this program. We have 2 different sessions, and they will be virtually. The first one will be from July 5th to July 30th. And the second one will be from August 2nd to August 27th. And I do encourage everyone to apply. There's only 2 requirements. The young people needs to be a resident of Manhattan, and they need to be either a rising junior, senior, or a 2021 graduate. And the application deadline is March 15, 2021, which is coming up next week at 5 p.m. I already sent the flyer out to Ebenezer. Hopefully has been e-blasted, but if you want me to email the flyer to you in particularly, I know Curtis, you work with young people, anyone who's interested, I can definitely send it out literally right now for you to have it. So just feel free to either put your email on the box or just send me an email. I can put my contact information as well. Those are my 2 announcements, and I'm more than happy to take any questions or concerns.
Thank you very much. That is really helpful information. I think that even though it's happening in CB9, they're neighbors, we're all friends. So it's great to have one that's on the west side and in close proximity to us. So we have three hands up. We have Jackie, Danielle, and then Mariella. Jackie.
Hi, so this is great. Yes, I was at that meeting, the gun buyback, and I always say, if we get 1 gun off the street, that's 1 less gun on the street. But Chief Mantry promised me that he was going to have the flyer ready no later than next week, because I conveyed to him, I said, I have not missed not 1 gun buyback since it started. And that's going back 6, 7, 8 years ago. I said, and what I find is the flyer comes out so late, you know, till a lot of people don't get it. I said, so it needs to be out now if we're talking about getting more guns off the street. He said, got it. And he told me, so I'm going to text him tonight and said, you said that the flyer will be ready, so let's get it started, because we need to get these guns off the street, and information is key. If people have the flyers, I feel we'll get more guns off the street. And one of the things is, I don't know if did you mention about how much they're paying?
That's the thing. So thank you, Jackie, for that. I actually had a call today with Sergeant Duretz, who's our contact at NYPD that we're working with. And the only reason why the flyer hasn't been out is because of the dollar amount. I can give you the amount that we gave out last year at our East Harlem, but we're trying to increase the amount. So once we get approval for the money, the flyer will be ready. It's basically already typed up and everything. We just need approval on the dollar amount, and we're waiting for that from NYPD downtown. So as soon as we get that information, if we get the okay, we send it. If we don't get the okay, we're still gonna work with what we have.
Great.
So let them know how much it was given out last time.
Last time it was $200 the top pay, and the minimum pay was $25 for a prepaid card. So we are trying to create a new tab, which will be $75. So we're trying to increase the $200 to $250. Create a new one for $75 and leave the $25 one just for air guns or the plastic fake ones. So we're trying to create a whole new category, which is a $75 one that was not part of it before. And the top pay, which was $200, we're trying to increase it to $250. Again, this has not been confirmed, which is why we don't have the flyer. So I don't want anyone to say, at least said that it will be $250 as opposed to $200 like the last one.
You're streaming live on YouTube, so you know.
Okay, perfect.
So
all right, so
making sure.
Yeah, we're just making, so we don't know yet. We're gonna follow up. I'll email the flyer around. And the community board would also email it. Send it to me tonight, and I'll what the other flyer you have about
the other flyer.
And I'll begin sharing that. And Jackie, you have to move on.
Okay, and any borough, because this is so important, it's not only limited to Manhattan. Anybody, any borough could bring in a gun.
Exactly. Thank you. So
Thank you, Jackie.
We have 2 more committee questions, and after that, we're going to briefly go to the transit officer Burks, and then Superintendent Miller, and then we're gonna wrap up our agency reports for the evening. Mariella.
I just wanted to ask a question about the internship for high school students, which I think is a great idea. And I'm really excited to hear that there are 2 sessions for it. I was wondering if it's a paid high school internship.
So if I'm not mistaken, our typical high school internship usually has a stipend, but last year it had to be switched because of COVID. So it became a virtual certificate program. So we didn't exactly call it an internship program. This is the first time that we're actually bringing it back. So we're working internally to see if we can get some type of stipend, but it hasn't been confirmed yet. As soon as if it gets confirmed, I will make sure to come back here or email you guys and let you know. But as of right now, it is not, but we're working on it to see if we can get some kind of incentive to the kids.
Okay, yeah, I just want to push and say, like, just as much as we are always focusing on the negative consequences of what happens when things go awry, I think it's also really important to invest financially in these
I agree.
programs.
And we're working on it. Hopefully we do get some kind of incentive for the
Okay, thank you
very much.
No, thank you.
OC Kaminer.
Yeah, I just want to mention that it's to say that it's really important to have one of those events in our district at least once a year. I understand that it's not too far, but you have to, not you, I'm sure you didn't decide about where the event will be, but people need to understand that residents are more likely to participate if it's close to their home, because they know where it is and they see what's going on. So that actually a way to reach more people in our community by having at least one event of that nature in our district once a year, hopefully twice, but I'm pushing for once a year first.
Thank you, Aussie. And I know I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but I just want to clarify that I agree with you. And how this event happened, it was kind of the same format as now. I spoke about the East Harlem event that we were having last year. Community Board Night approached me to have it like the month right after. At that time, we couldn't host it, but we stayed in touch and in conversation. And when the opportunity came, we are able to host it in West Harlem. So we can do the same thing for Community Board 12. We can stay in conversation. We can look into to hopefully have one later on in the future, because my office is always open to hear from community board to see which one will be the next location, which is how this one came. Community Board 9 approached us, and when they asked, we couldn't have it at that moment because of multiple reasons, one of them being COVID. But the new year, we said we're going to look into it for 2021, which we did, and now we're hosting it. So that's something that we can definitely speak offline with Curtis or anyone who's interested.
So I think we should put that, make sure that's reflected in the minutes, Mariella, because this is something that the chairperson of the board should be advocating for when they attend the district service cabinet meetings, as well as the borough board meetings. So we should make sure that Ebenezer is on board to pushing for this when he attends his borough board, and that Eleazar is on board with pushing this when he attends the borough board meeting and any other meeting that he attends as the chairperson of the board, just to make sure that it doesn't just die here as a conversation point.
Yeah, we're always open. So you can reach out to myself, Jocelyn Minaya, and we can start having the conversation to look into it for a later date, maybe in the future.
Yep, cool. Danielle, last comment is from Danielle. We have one.
Yeah, that basically addressed my question, which was whether there are plans to expand and if we could potentially have one in our district and co-host. So I think, yeah, it sounds like yes. That.
I mean, I would love to keep the momentum. So if this one's successful, we can have one every month. I'm okay with that as long as we work together, so we can, stay in touch, and we can start planning hopefully for the near future to host one in CB12.
Great. So we do have to move on. Very briefly, Transit Division, followed by Superintendent Miller. You have 1 minute each to make your presentation. I'm going to ask everyone else to please yield the remainder of your questions until we finish the agency updates, so we can move forward with our agenda. Also, lower your hand if you pose your question already, so I'm not confused. And Chanel, while we're doing that, while you're preparing Transit Division and Mr. Miller, could you move over from the attendee list are Meg Young, Philip Ellison, Solomon Aceveda, and Crenshaw to the panelist screen? Thank you. All right, Officer Burks.
Good evening, I'm Officer Burks from Transit District 3. For the 28-day period, we had 13 index crimes compared to 12 of last year at this time. We're up 8.3%. For a breakdown, for grand larcenies, it's 6, robberies 1, assaults 5. As well as, even though it's in the 3-4 precinct, we did have the 1 homicide that occurred at 181st Street on the A line. recently, just to give a little brief description about that, the person who did commit the crime have been apprehended, and there's been more officers at the station lately in regards to that, as well as the community has been reaching out with BRC, which is Bowery Residents Committee, and we've been going out there to help assist with any homeless that's been out there from that station all the way to 168th Street, and we've been doing more outings to assist drug addicts and the homeless person that's over there.
Great, thank you very much. We'll come back to any final questions after Mr. Superintendent Miller.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, actually. Superintendent Miller from Edgecombe Correctional Facility located at 611 Edgecombe. Since our last meeting, we've had, right now we have no one positive for COVID in the facility. We were able to administer the vaccine to 100 people, 98 staff and 2 inmates. We are going to be doing the second dose in 2 more weeks. We were using Moderna. That went well. We've also, we suffered there was a manhole explosion that took place a couple of weeks ago on Edgecombe. It was right in front of the facility. Probably salt getting into the wiring or whatever. So we were out of power for a day. We had to use a backup generator, but everything's fine right now. Today we did a mock escape pursuit drill where we just handle what we would do if anybody left unauthorized, how we would employ the local law enforcement entities such as state police and the 33rd Precinct. So we did that. That was successful. All right, that's my report.
All right, thank you very much. So I have one hand so far, and Chanel, could you also move over Solomon as a presenter shortly? And my apologies, we're a little bit behind schedule, but we're getting there. Danielle.
Sorry, just curious, did you only vaccinate 2 incarcerated persons because only 2 people were interested, or because of supply?
He's gone. He's gone.
Superintendent Miller?
He's gone.
I'm here.
Okay.
Yes, was there a question?
Yes, there was a question.
That would be my question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so my question, you mentioned that 2 people, 2 incarcerated persons were vaccinated. And my question was, is that because only 2 people were interested or because of a supply issue?
No, there was a criteria. So basically for the 65 and over population, that was the first cohort that was eligible. We had 1 individual that was interested and that would still be in the facility to receive the second shot. So those were the criteria. They had to want the shot and be able to get the second shot. And then the second individual was under 65, but they had comorbidities. So once that cohort opened up, we were able to offer that person a shot. They also were interested and were going to be able to get the second shot. Other people didn't want to stay longer to get the second shot than the time they were going to be released. So that was what we had at the time. Since that time that they got the first shot, we got 2 more individuals that are eligible. So we're going to look at getting them their first shot when we get more doses.
All righty, thank you very much. We are going to move forward in our agenda now at this point. Thank you all for the agency updates. It's always great to know what's happening around the community and to make sure that we're all moving on to the same beat. Oh, just one other comment, Officer Burks. So did you hear my comment earlier about the knife that was found at the subway?
I did not get that comment, actually.
Yeah, there was someone who came to our general body meeting who shared that they had found a knife that was hidden in one of the platforms in like a small area. I don't know where exactly. It was Dykeman and A train. So I guess my question is, have you noticed a pattern of finding weapons on the train and at particular locations?
Actually, at one station we did have one before, but that was 181st Street on the A line, which was a homeless individual who was selling Metro cards and he was jamming the machine to use it. We did find one there, but at the time he didn't have it. He didn't have it on him, but we did notice a knife there. But this is about 1.5 years ago. So okay. That's not an occurrence. Mm-hmm. But for that to happen, I am an NCO that covers from 168th Street all the way to 242nd Street. So I will pay more attention to that and I'll look in the crevices a little bit more to just in case that does happen more often.
Yeah,
It
I
will.
would say, just hearing what you just said, I can see how, those who are jamming the subway, they need something to do that with. So I would imagine that could be something that's used often. All right, thank you very much. Thank you all for the first portion of the meeting. We are going to move forward in our agenda this evening. As you know, we invited several guests to join us as we discuss what does reimagining of public safety look like. It's a conversation that we've tackled a lot in our committee over the past, since I've been chair at least. We've done a lot of work moving the conversations forward. Starting back when I first took the chair position, probably over a year now, we talked about the CCRB and 50A, and we passed a resolution on supporting the repeal of 50A. We've had a panel discussion on bail reform. We've done a resolution to support the release of incarcerated individuals due to COVID. We've passed a resolution recently in support of less is more, those to be released on technical parole violations sooner. And I was hoping to have Brian Benjamin here because Senator Benjamin is a sponsor of that bill, but he was unable to attend this evening. Last minute change in the schedule, so he emailed earlier to say he was not able to attend. We've also talked about the passing resolution on the 500 additional cops for the transit. And one of the underlying themes of all of our resolutions and all of our discussion points is there's always been a resolve or a whereas to reinforce the issue the need to support community funding programs, mental health programs, education programs, violence prevention programs, et cetera. So I believe all of the resolutions, even if they've been, on whatever topic, they've all included that particular line. I went back and read a few of them, and it's been a reoccurring theme in our community to call for, additional services, additional support for those who are in need of services, and not just always have the additional enforcement as the go-to thing we do, and the thing that people want in the community. So that brought us to this conversation today. To talk with experts, people who are in the field, people who have concerns. Jackie Roy Adams being one who started a nonprofit Mothers Against Gun Violence, Harlem Mother Saves. And I wanted to bring her perspective to the conversation. We also have Solomon Acevedo, who presented on our bail reform panel last year. Solomon now works at Jumani Williams' office, in the public advocate's office. And we have a few others. We have Philip Ellison, who's also joining us from the public advocate's office. And we have Meg Young. I'll let you introduce yourself when we get to that point. But I thought that it was when I read the public advocate's education platform on reimagining public safety, it seemed to be really comprehensive. So I wanted to get a presentation on that. And to learn more about that perspective in relationship to also the gun piece that Jackie is working on, and so it's really invested in. And then we have a few others who are going to jump in after Solomon to kind of round up the conversation, to talk about some of the challenges with reimagining public safety and the tech issue. Because as we heard in our community, we've also had a call for more, I guess, how do I say this? The Furious Act, for example, when we discussed the Furious Act, we passed a resolution on the Furious Act, but one of the things that came out of it was we don't want to be overly, camerized or have surveillance everywhere, because that's also an issue that could lead to increase in incarceration. So we passed a resolution supporting this legislation, but we also made sure that we were not blanketly saying we want more cameras on every corner. So Philip Ellison brought together a few experts to talk about surveillance issues and how technology is also a part of the reimagining public safety conversation. And we have to be cognizant of what we're asking to ensure that we're not advocating for cameras to be on every corner or to every building to have a camera, and what that can result in. So without further ado, I'm going to start off by having Jackie Roy Adams talk about who she is, what you do, Jackie, and why the importance of continuing to discuss guns in the context of reimagining public safety is so important to you.
So first, let me say thank you, Curtis, for having me tonight. And for full disclosure, I was on Community Board 12 for at least 6 or 7 years. So I'm not a stranger, only to the new people. So this going way back with Pam and a couple of others that that was the chair. So, and it's important that we talk about these issues because many times, as I think I said to Curtis and to several people, people sweep, gun violence, some of these guns, sweep it under the rug, don't take it real serious. Well, I'm Jackie Rowe Adams. I can't go through my whole resume because we'd be here all night, but I'm Jackie Rowe Adams, born and bred in Harlem. I am a mother of 2 now. I was a mother of 4 boys. My 2 sons got killed with gun violence. And also, after they got killed, I started a nonprofit organization. But before I go there, I want to say I am a community leader. And I've been fighting out there on the front line for a long time. And I believe in health. And I truly believe in public safety. I started an organization called Harlem Mother Safe, Stop Another Violent End. We started off with 5 mothers going to Assemblyman Keith Wright office, which named our group. And we stood on the steps of City Hall with Eric Adams. He was at the 100 law enforcement and called the question, who's giving our kids these guns? That's who I am. And found out that 2 bodegas in Harlem was giving out selling guns, and this good watermelon truck and good collard greens in Harlem was selling guns. So that's what made me start this organization. And then Assemblywoman Inez Dickens found us a home. So most and foremost, I am definitely a Harlem night, a Washington Heights night, city night, and state. And this concerns all of us, this issue.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Jackie. Now I'm going to turn it over to Philip Ellison to introduce yourself, Philip. And I think you emailed me a few documents you want to share.
Yes, and I would actually pass it over to Solomon. If Solomon's on the call, he can talk a bit about the plan and so forth. And then as the last point is about tech, I'll take a moment to ground it in what our office views and believes and bring in we'll show a brief 50-second clip of the Ban the Scan film, short film, and that we're very lucky to have Mutali Nakande from AI the People, who helped produce and create this art and content to be able to understand, as well as Meg Young. So I'll pass it over to Solomon if he'd like to talk about the plan and so forth overall.
Thank you very much. So we should be sharing the screen now. Chanel, you want to share the screen? There's a link that Solomon just placed in the chat box that you can share. I can't share the screen. I don't think I have. Oh, wait, maybe I can.
Good afternoon, everybody. While y'all figure out the technical difficulties, I'd just like to thank everybody for being on the call and participating in this conversation about how to keep our community safe, and especially at a time now where we're making decisions about what it means to reimagine working together as good people to make a better place for each other to live and thrive and grow healthily. And that's really what this platform is about. So I'd like to honor Jackie Rowe Adams for the work that you do and the amazing strength and spirit that it takes to really respond from your heart with a solution that's real. And I think that's what we were driven by when we were thinking about reimagining public safety. And just a little bit about me, my background is working at Vocal New York, Brooklyn-based nonprofit, as a civil rights campaign coordinator around bail reform and ending mass incarceration in general. And so, the question about safety and the stigma around justice-involved individuals and the reality of colonization and the history of oppression really lines us all up to understand and view safety in a different way. And during the pandemic at the time, immediately after George Floyd and the protests in New York, we were thinking about how we could really impact our community and our city by looking at the solutions that were coming straight from the ground. And the movement to defund the police caused a lot of hysteria in people's hearts. People were truly kind of unearthed by what happened and what surfaces in the reality of what is, you know, injustice that is structural. And we wanted to address the structural inequity and the disproportionate impact that it has on Black and brown low income people, and really center the solutions that are coming out from the community. And so we had originally imagined it to be the people's platform, something similar to a statement of values, like the Black Panther Party. So, you know, it was really driven to be a way to center ourselves around our community. And we broke it down into 10 different categories that are part of both legislative initiatives that are in the works now, and those that have been working. And so, you know, Jackie mentioned around gun violence, the uptick in the summertime really was the initial focus for this plan. And because right when we were having conflicts around public safety between police and civilians, and people asking, well, how do we fix this problem? People were like, what about the crisis management system? And I don't know if people know what the crisis management system is. I'm sure Jackie could get more deeply into it, and understanding the way that from the grassroots, individuals who have experience with interrupting violence and have deep relations in the community could really break something down. And also to center the violence that we don't name that happens with our Black trans sisters who are disproportionately at pandemic levels being killed by gun violence. Schools was another issue that we were centering on. And all of these 10 issue areas where we were focusing on are areas in which law enforcement is being used to handle something that could potentially be handled by other skilled professionals. And this is not to say that there aren't capable people in the police department to perhaps perform these extraordinary abilities when an emergency occurs. But we were imagining a solution that would say, what if we could shift resources to center the skilled professionals who could create these solutions and find a way to collaborate with community members to make a new structure or expand additional structures like the crisis management system that we're working. So in schools, we're talking about reimagining the way that school safety is involved. For housing and homelessness, we're talking about the ways in which the NYPD engages with people who are on the subway and people who are on the street who living in crisis. For mental health, we really were centering this mental health crisis response for when people dial 911 and they have a mental health crisis. They have been labeled EDP calls by the police department internally, but we are shifting that language, right, to think about mental health in a more comprehensive way. And so for transportation, how do we use our resources to engage things with that could necessarily be automated, for example, like traffic stops, and also, like I mentioned, the transportation in the subway. If you could scroll down, I'll leave technology for last and go into domestic violence responses. Many of the calls that NYPD receives are for domestic violence responses, and from individuals we hear, that's not always the best solution. And there's so many barriers which range from skill set to language interpretation that really have a negative impact on community members. And if there was other avenues that could help, it would be something that could be explored, along with immigration, specifically talking about the engagement around ICE and the collaboration around work with law enforcement and protecting vulnerable families who are in crisis, families who are in the midst of ACS type cases. How do we non-criminalize folks going through these processes? And ultimately, this is because public safety is a public health issue. And
yes,
I believe that if we were able to take care of these things in a way that was informed by the people who are being harmed the most, then the solutions would be more comprehensive and they would be more sustaining and they would have a long-lasting impact. So even now, we have just last week noticed we had 2 public hearings in City Council. There's legislation being proposed around this mental health crisis response. There's a pilot proposed by the city where advocates are really against this whole law altogether. We've ourselves have proposed a law alternative to 911. Right now, the real challenge with these mental health crisis calls is the dispatch person has to have an ability to understand the mental health crisis and the dynamics of psychology on the 3-minute phone call with no training on the subject. And so we want to find ways to make it easier for the right people to get to the right supportive resources. And that's really all this is about. Like I said, prioritizing public health and making sure that we use our resources to the best of our ability. And another thing that we are, working on that's coming up soon is, banning facial recognition. And during this protest in the summer, a lot of issues around surveillance and technology became something that was a central conversation. But we don't really talk about the ways in which surveillance and technology and, the ways in which we can be harmed digitally are important. And so I wanted to make some space in this moment to bring on Philip to speak about the ways in which that impacts our community. And, thank you all for making the time for us to be here. We are always an ally to the community board to surface issues and raise what is going on. So thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. And I want to ask Chanel at this time too, could you move over all of the attendees and at this time so they're part when we get to the question and answer period? We can dive a little bit deeper and hear from community members on what their thoughts are on these issues. So while we're doing that, Philip Ellison.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Philip Ellison, the Manhattan Borough Advocate and liaison to the tech and data team at the Public Advocate's Office. Good to be with you again. And I thank you for the kind of vision and commitment and collaboration from the chair, Curtis, continuing to do a good job and be forward thinking. And in reality, to be thinking in the now, right? And so when we think about could you hear me before? Sorry, could you hear me?
Yep, we hear you. Now we're good.
Okay, did you hear me a couple of seconds ago before you moved me over?
I did, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, just wanted to make sure. So I'm gonna take a moment to ground this in the why. And so for our office, myself, our tech director, our deputy public advocate of health, equity, justice, and safety, and ultimately and most importantly, the public advocate, Jamani Williams. What we've seen and understood, and I think all of us can really attest to this and share this, is that the pandemic has brought to the life and to bear that much of our engagement in society right now is the infrastructure. It's about people, but the infrastructure is technology across different aspects of our livelihoods, our business, our communication, our entertainment, our transportation, is all supported by the infrastructure of tech. It's actually, technology is almost like the air we breathe in many ways in our society, even if we're not seeing it or knowing how it works. Oftentimes people are a little intimidated or unsure, and so they're not really either paying attention or aware, to no fault of their own. And so we've also understood that if technology is doing things like survey, if people and bodies like at the New York Police Department, which I'm a grandson of a New York police officer, as using technologies, digital technologies like facial recognition and biometric data technologies to surveil us, in regards to ICE, in regards to immigration, in regards to housing. We're seeing facial recognition and biometric technology be increasingly integrated in critical areas of our public and private life. And so it's implemented, it's almost a bureaucratized surveillance that has some bias in it. So when we think about this summer, we hold this summer and thinking about how your Black and other brown neighbors are impacted in our criminal justice system and the calls for justice this summer, we also have to make that connection of how do your neighbors, how do your friends, how do your loved ones, maybe your niece or nephew, how they're being implicated. We see across the country instances where facial recognition is being used with very little oversight by New York Police Department. We saw it this summer where it's misidentified, Black men, et cetera. In New Jersey, there's a case where the police used facial recognition and so forth, and misidentified someone and put him in jail for 10 days. And so this brings to bear concerns that our office has when we think about race and technology, public safety, and then other areas where tech is used by local government around that. So I just begin to bring these things out. We came together with Amnesty International, local tech and data just advocates like Stop the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project, Mutali from AI from the People you'll hear from shortly, and other lawyers and other advocates to do a call for a ban the scan, to take a moment for us to learn together about these different types of technologies, their implications, and what's going on with the NYPD and its oversight. And part of this video, we have a 50-second video that will show and illuminate this. So I thank you for your time, and we'll dig a little bit deeper, and we'll begin to see the different areas of how this, it's not just the policing or immigration. We know folks are looking at homelessness in other parts of the city. We're looking at crime, how they think what's the react, but are also seeing it when it comes to urban planning, when people are looking for their boxes in Amazon, or urban planning is going to be looking at cars and different types of vehicles. There's going to be the use of this technology. So we need to get ahead of this now. We're actually a little bit behind. So I'll pass it off to, we'll show the 50-second clip of the Ban the Scan video, and then I'll pass it to and introduce Mutali and Meg to take it from there.
All right, can you all see my screen?
Yes, I mean, maybe zoom in. I don't know if there's any way to zoom in for folks who might be on phone, or if there's a bit to zoom in a little bit. That's perfect.
When the building was bought by new management, they switched security companies, and they just like switched the whole thing around. There's a big screen TV broken up maybe into like 12 or more smaller screens that are constantly switching floors. And then like to see like people tap their key fob and then their screen pops up, it's just like, whoa.
We had to think about this problem in a nuanced form and not think about it as a new technology coming to our building, but think about it from the framework of this is a new pest within the already ongoing onslaught of strategies that landlords use to harass their tenants.
When I first answered the door, I thought the man kind of looked familiar, and I cracked the door. I have a warrant for your arrest. I immediately slammed the door closed, and I told him to slide the warrant under my door.
We received this really thick manila packet, probably had like 30-something pages in it. And it had a one-pager about the type of technology that they would be using, which was Stonelock's facial recognition heat mapping system, which they tried to sell as being like a better alternative to other facial recognition systems. But to get into the building, I would need to scan my face.
And that was my first time where I had a real negative relationship with technology, because it was something I never asked for being imposed on me, and the things that it was going to potentially take was something I had a problem with. And I got worried for folks like my great grandmother, who doesn't know anything past your regular like rotary phone.
I'm raising a brown boy in New York City, in gentrified Brooklyn. It does not make me feel safe for my son. It does not make me feel good at all. I don't want his biometric data in some system from when he was 4 years old. Like my thought pattern was like, if this thing is installed into my building and you are now tracking my face. You have my biometric data now. And I go to work one day and I'm working 9 to 5. But while I'm at work, I end up in a virtual lineup that I don't know about. Nobody calls you, nobody tells you, they just do a virtual lineup. But now I have to fight the algorithms. I have to prove that the algorithm is wrong. I have to tell some data scientist that, yep, that algorithm is wrong, but like, that's not my face, that's not my biometric.
I was looking out of my bedroom windows, and there was officers in my patio area, and one on my fire escape. One was holding his holster like this, and the other had a long gun, and they were pointing it directly at me. And that escalated it quite a bit. Yeah.
So this is where the police had a battering ram against my door. Inside, the walls were shaking, pictures were falling down. I could hear them counting loudly, saying 1, 2, 3, boom.
There's evidence that they use facial recognition software to track me, and a lot of the details are pointing towards that. I know that they utilize my social media. They took pictures from my Instagram to make wanted posters and to post on their public Twitter.
All you're seeing is a nuanced tool on an age-old problem. Surveillance has always been a thing, particularly within Black and Brown communities.
I don't think law enforcement has a history of de-escalating when it comes to Black bodies and Black men especially.
The algorithms aren't built to recognize us. Faces like ours are not put into the data sets. So they automatically have bias against us because they don't know us. So they see us as a threat.
The right thing to do sometimes is never easy, and you just gotta accept that. And so I think that's what we've accepted here at Atlantic. It's difficult, it is. But I wouldn't say this is hopeless.
All right.
And I want to just make a quick comment here. We shared this 5-minute video, the Ban the Scan, on the website with Amnesty and in the Public Advocates page. And a couple of things here is that, be clear, when we are highlighting, in this video, they highlight that, and I won't talk too much about the video, let Mutali talk about it, but in terms of what we say is a ban or moratorium, is that, it's particularly looking at policing, again, a lack of oversight, a matter of bias and other issues. And we are calling for a ban on the city council to really step up to engage on this issue around facial recognition and biometric technology and policing. And there also is a bill that Mutali can talk about from State Senator Brad Hoylman that people can look into now. And I want to say also as well, I invite all of you, is that we're having a deeper dive on this issue at March 10th. Tomorrow is the State of the People at the Public Advocate's Office, but March 10th, next Wednesday, I believe, is our facial recognition and surveillance town hall. And so we'll make sure we send it with Curtis, so everyone, it's a longer and learning process. But I do take a moment, I want to pass it, we could talk, Mutali could talk a bit about the video and art and S79, but I will just want to take Mutali before I pass it to you. I just want to go to Meg just a little bit, as Mutali has written legislation and knows so much about this issue. But just to give a moment for Meg to make some remarks, as Meg Young is a postdoc researcher at Cornell Tech and studied information science at University of Washington, Michigan, Cambridge. She spent a lot of time with advocates on the ground, within government, and also thinking about who are these vendors that are selling this type of technology, that they don't have much oversight when we look at this, right? And so it's an issue we're going to learn together. So I pass it on Meg to make some remarks, and then pass it to Mutali to really round us out on some of the action and some of the video and the art pieces here around facial recognition as a Black woman and as a communications person. So Meg, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Philip, and thank you so much, everyone, for having me. I'm really happy to be with you. I am a researcher coming to you from Seattle, where they passed a law for creating community control over surveillance technology being used there. And the reason that I wanted to speak to you tonight about this ban the scan campaign is that researchers in my field have overwhelmingly come out in favor of banning face recognition technology. And I just want to amplify a couple of things in the video Matale showed us. One, it talked about how face recognition is inaccurate. We know that these systems perform much more poorly for Black and brown people, and also especially women of color. And once this data is collected, it can be resold and reused in ways that it's not possible right now for us to anticipate what those will be. And because we can't change our faces, then once our face data is collected and as it's reused over time, it's really hard for us to pull that risk back in. And so I'm going to drop into the chat a resource that I created with other community groups in Seattle to try to put in one place all the big questions that we should be asking of our government in Seattle for each of the surveillance technologies they were using that I'm hopeful would be helpful to you here in New York. Thanks. And now turning it over to Matale.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for inviting me. I'm joining you from Brooklyn, New York, so not too far away. I know you were speaking about CB9 being neighbors. I'm not quite your neighbor, but I am a New Yorker. So just in terms of grounding you in my expertise and some of the work that we're trying to do, I, like Meg, I'm a researcher. One of the areas that I've looked at is biometric technologies, and specifically how well they perform against Black skin. So I have been actively looking at the chat, and a really good question came up. Why would we not want to catch people doing bad things? Well, the truth of it is, with facial recognition, it does not work 40% of the time on people with dark skin. So I could be 50 or 60 miles away. Philip could be 50 or 60 miles away. We could be identified as a crime, with a crime. We could be arrested. We could go through booking and be criminalized, and it was not us. And the way the US justice system is set up, the burden of proof would be on us to show the courts that we were there. There would not be the assumption that we were innocent because we are Black and because we're criminalized. Whereas if Meg committed the same crime, facial recognition would actually recognize her almost 80% of the time. And if Meg was Michael, if she were a white man, 90% of the time. So one of the things that we did with our research initially was I led a team that introduced the No Biometric Barriers to Housing Act, because one of the places that facial recognition is most used in New York City is in city housing. So NYCHA housing, as well as private landlords who, while they're gentrifying, they are putting in these systems to make where neighborhoods like Brownsville, neighborhoods like Upper Manhattan seem safer, right? Because you can now see who's on your street and who's committing crime. And of course, these are Black and brown neighborhoods, so they're not being recognized. You're not actually safe. And then a secondary use, and this really came out during the uprisings of 2020, is police use of facial recognition. And I would encourage people to really consider that in this scenario, police are actually not the bad or the good guys. They're just an agency, they're given a tool, they use the tool. That does not mean that the tool is accurate. So what we're seeking to do at AI for the People is, yes, I'm a researcher. Yes, I'm a policy analyst. Yes, I've introduced federal level legislation on this, along with Black women in Congress, because the other thing I would say are the people who are on the front lines, just like Mother Jackie on this call, are always Black women. I stand on the shoulders of people like Mother Jackie because we are the ones whose sons, my children, my sons, I only have 2. If I lost 2 to gun violence, I would have no more children, right? My sons are going to be the ones that are impacted by this. And so I say that to say, what is the best way of having this discussion is through arts and culture, because it breaks down barriers and it enables you to see real stories. And so we, over the next few months, are going to be doing community education work. We invite our brothers and sisters in police, as well as other community members, to really consider, as we redefine public safety, Do we need more cameras and more surveillance, or do we just need healthier communities, right? That's what Solomon was talking about. Do we need ways to meet the needs of New Yorkers who are struggling with COVID that can avoid this wrongful criminalization of Black and Brown people? I certainly do not have as a long resume as Mother Jackie, but I do have a pretty long resume, and it's late and I can talk for hours. So I'm going to yield, but I would love to, I'm here for questions, and I just respectfully ask, as we think about who we're going to be as New Yorkers, can we make sure that Black and Brown New Yorkers are not, this doesn't happen on our backs, and that our full personhood can be really respected as we think about policing and what it means to be in a safe city. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Mutale, Meg,
Excellent,
Solomon,
excellent.
Jackie. You nailed it. I really do think that as we talk about this, we noticed, as you heard earlier, there has been an increase in burglaries in our community. There's an increase in noise complaints in our community. There's an increase in knife use in our community. So those are really important issues in the community. But as you mentioned, the solution is not just to use technology to help mitigate crime, because that actually does not. We know that's not going to solve the issue long term. So I'm happy that we were able to bring a group of people together to talk about it at a much deeper level, and to not point fingers, but to say, okay, well, we know that this is not the thing. This is not the direction we need to be advocating for personally, at least in my personal opinion. So thank you for joining. Thank you for presenting. I want to open it up to questions now, and from our committee members first, or comments.
Hi, this is Graham. I just want to say thank you for highlighting this issue, and it's incredibly disturbing what is able to be done. It's invasive, it's dangerous, and it's terrifying. And I just want to say, I hope we can do something as a community board if we want to talk about resolution or action that could be taken. I think we should really look at that.
Thank you, Graham. So I have one question. What do we say to people as a community board, as a committee, when people are coming to us? And we've heard people say, we need more cameras. I even said it. Packages are being stolen. So what do we say to people to kind of educate them on some of these intricacies and these issues? And are there is this facial recognition the same as just, you're educating me, is it the same as just like a regular camera? Are we talking, what are we saying there for people who do have concerns? And these concerns are extremely valid. People who have concerns about being able to walk on the streets safely at night, these concerns are valid. So what do you suggest we say to people when there is a call in the community for more surveillance or cameras to help solve crime? What do we say?
So I would say that there is a need to solve crime, that your packages shouldn't be stolen. You should be safe to walk down the street. You should be able to get on the A train. The A train goes to my house like it goes to your house, y'all. And when that man was stabbing the people, I was scared, right? Because that could have been me. However, having said that, if we're going to use a tool, it has to be accurate.
Yes.
So if that tool that we're using doesn't know whether it's looking at Curtis or whether it's looking at Officer Burks, then is that a tool that we should be using? So rather than rushing to try and get more of these tools, let's get tools that actually work. And then the thing that will make you laugh is it's not like there's this facial recognition machine. So the cameras that we're talking about, that you're advocating for, take our pictures. But those cameras are grainy. And some colleagues of mine that I worked with at Georgetown when I was working on the Hill found that it did a study with the NYPD. They foiled the NYPD. They sued them for the FOIA records, went through the whole thing, 2 years, they get them. And the pictures are so bad that they found officers were drawing in the rest of people's faces. Or there was one where they wanted a black man, but they couldn't get the bottom of his face. So they went to Google Images and just typed in black lips and stuck them on. right? There's another case where they were looking for a white suspect and that somebody said that he looked like Woody Harrelson. And so they put a picture of Woody Harrelson through and hoped that it would match. This is not the way. Like, I'm a communicator, yes, but I'm a technologist first. I just happen to be good at lots of things, right? So as a technologist and as a scientist, and Meg, you would agree with me, when we're writing peer-reviewed papers, we have such high levels of rigor that we would never be able just to, you know, Google image something to create evidence. And it's not because the police are bad. And this is why I really have to make this clear. This isn't about bashing the NYPD or not. They're often not trained how to use these technologies.
Right.
We often have pressure.
Mhm,
So you
right.
can't then be mad at people at the 34th or the 33rd or whoever, you know, the great updates. I'm terrified, by the way, by your updates, y'all. I'm staying in my house, but you can't blame them because the facial recognition unit itself is only 5 years old. So we have this technology, we have the intention to use it well. The technology itself does not work properly, and who's getting rich? The tech companies. Who impacted Black and brown folk in New York. And as a Black New Yorker that has the privilege of having this knowledge, it is my responsibility to share this and come to solutions that when we do think about how we're funding police, that we're using tools that
So I have two questions, and I'm so happy that you mentioned that, and I'm still happy that we have our officers on the line still watching and participating, because so much of this conversation, it's not about them. It's not, you know, saying NYPD is bad. It's about what are the tools we need to make sure that we're able to move forward to build a stronger community. And I'm happy that they're here listening and they're learning. So thank you so much for staying on. I see your names there, so I wanted to give you a big shout out for that. So we're gonna take. I have Mariella, I have Jackie, Danielle, and then Alan, in that order. Mariella.
So I just want to say that was a really great presentation, and all of the speakers. I think it was really great to see lots of different perspectives on this.
Yes.
On the facial recognition, I'm wondering what is the movement nationwide about this? Like, I can't help but also think of, like, you know, on my iPhone, like, I don't use the Face ID because there's just something subliminally that makes me feel like that's just kind of freaky. Like, I don't know that I can type in my code, you know, 1,000,000 times a day. I don't really want to keep holding it up to my face. So I'm wondering, what does this look like nationally? And are there other uses or other ways that helps build coalition around this issue, even if it's not directly about Black and brown communities?
Meg, do you want, I can go, but I would love to bring you in.
Oh, I heard the second question, but would you repeat the first question, Mariella?
It depends. I don't remember the first versus the second.
I heard your question
It was
about
the landscape. It was first was the landscape.
So
what's the national landscape in the moment? And then secondly, about what outside of just like Black and brown people, the coalition around this issue.
So I can do landscape really quickly. So AI for the people are doing this work nationally. I'm a New Yorker, so I'm definitely going to do it in my hometown. But we had San Francisco being the first place to ban this. And one of the things that was ironic about San Francisco is that they are the people that created facial recognition in Silicon Valley. And they found it so invasive that they did not want it in their own city. Then came Boston and Somerville, which are two big research hubs. Again, many of the companies that produce are producing out of the Cambridge area, so MIT, Harvard area. Then came Boston as the state. Then Portland did something that was really amazing in the sense that I'm really interested in government ban, just because I'm not quite comfortable telling people what to do in their private lives. But Portland said, balls to the walls, we are banning everything, and you can't actually use it in the city of Portland. There are proposals in New York State. So S79, which is being advanced by Brad Holliman's office, is looking for a ban of police use of facial recognition. I have my own views about that. I do support that, but I do see another way potentially. But I'm a strategist, right? I've written policy, so I'm not necessarily always on the hard line. They're looking for public oversight in that bill, which is really important. And that goes to what Meg, I'm sure, will speak about. And there've been great national models on that, as well as sunsetting technologies. So right now, the way technology procurement is set up, once the company has market, doesn't. So if you just think about Amazon, I got my first Amazon account in the 1990s. I've never left Amazon. Under this bill, there would be sunset if the technology itself was problematic. The way people are thinking about it isn't actually race, Mariella. The way I think about it is race, and that's just because all my research sits at the intersection of technology and racial justice, but they're thinking about it in terms of privacy. And what you'll notice is on the national scale, it is white communities that are deciding that they don't want this, white rich communities. It is not poor Black and brown folk, because they do not imagine of Black people like me, been to Harvard, been to Stanford, all of it. They don't even think that I would get anywhere close. And so they don't put us into the conversation. So I myself am very conscious about making sure that all communities, and this really impacts disabled people and other minoritized groups. And I would also say, Mariella, Asian people, because the data sets are made for white men. So your face wouldn't be recognized either, because you don't have a European, what would be recognized as a European face in the data set. But Meg, I know you can go to the second.
Can I just go? I want to move on with the questions for, let me just go to Jackie really quickly, and then we'll circle back around after Jackie and then Danielle to Meg, okay?
Yes, first let me say, what a wonderful presentation. I really appreciated that. I thought, coming from the public advocate office, you was gonna go in another direction, but you fooled me. And I want you to tell him Jackie Rowe Adams said hi. So great, I learned some stuff. I really did. And I am very familiar with what you're doing. But let me say this, I feel you said it right, training and defunding the police, the monies should go to such as that training. And it's very important. So it should be a no-brainer for them to say, when we defund the police, where is this money going? It should go to not only training for the facial record, but training police, because there's so much work out here to do. And as far as cameras, I feel we need more. But when they put the cameras up and they say, oh, I see John walking down the street, well, why you can't catch John? So when you put these cameras up, we want you to catch John. And so when you talk, and this is how I feel, because every day, let me say to you, literally my phone is ringing. Because as you heard, I'm a mother who lost 2 kids to gun violence. We have an organization, Harlem Mother Save, and that's what we do, prevention and education. And the mothers and families are hurting. So they're calling because their kids got killed or their family members got killed. So, and I'm definitely an advocate for NYPD. I work very closely with them. Are they perfect? No. Do we need them? Yes. So I could go on and on, but I just wanted to highlight that training piece. And when we talk about defunding the police, this is very key. So we need to stay, with that. And I heard something about city council is supposed to pass a resolution or vote on which piece? I'm sorry.
Was that the ban?
We don't know who has, or there should be, a ban, a moratorium coming out of the city council. Okay. Right, and we don't have that right now. We do have S79, Brad Hoylman's bill, as a moratorium, yes, for the task force to stop, slow down, so forth. And so, but the public advocate's calling for, with the Amnesty International and other folks like Machali and others around the city council to come up with this. So,
yes, okay. So again, thank you, and thank you for that presentation. There's so much more to say. We'll be here till tomorrow. So go ahead, Curtis.
Danielle,
March 10th. Join us March 10th.
Danielle, followed by Elsie.
Hey, so I'm still recovering from COVID, so please bear with me. So I guess I just wanted to first thank the presenters. really appreciate your presentation and this enriching conversation. And I feel like one of the things that I'm constantly thinking about just in my own time and on this committee is how to balance, you know, public safety, making sure that our community members feel safe while also taking steps to, you know, protect our data, keep people out of jails, you know, just protect even people who are in gangs, you know. I dare to say that, you know, because what I've learned from working in the jail system is that sometimes people get involved in gangs because, you know, they're looking for protections. And I think it can be easy to just sort of assume that somebody's a thug or something like that. But, you know, I think that these issues are really complex, and that's what I try to bring to this board. And I'm so happy that, you know, we are having these sorts of conversations. And then I just wanted to also quickly mention that a few meetings ago, we talked about speed cameras and the Fast and Furious. And one of the things that I spent a lot of time thinking about before, after that meeting, was just my feelings on cameras and surveillance. And I just felt so uneasy. I mean, I know it's slightly different because it's cars speeding, going, you know, moving very quickly and people potentially being killed. But for some reason, I just felt so uneasy about just surveillance. And you know, we were talking about expanding cameras in school zones, but then but my issue was that the areas that were I think somebody had been hit, or the problem areas were not the same areas where the cameras were. So it was sort of like they were just, you know, indiscriminately, just sort of subjectively deciding where they were going to expand cameras and not thinking critically about, you know, where the problems were. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, that's something about that just made me feel really uneasy. And I thought we need to put more time and thought into this and collect data and figure out where the problems are. Because it's like, for me, you know, how far are we going to go? Are we going to have cameras on every single corner? But of course, I want people to be safe. I don't want people to be hit by cars, but I also feel like it's important to think about, you know, to be mindful and to have a tailored approach.
Let me just jump in right there and just make it a full circle moment, because I think this is really, really important for our committee to know, is that we passed a resolution on the Furious Act. It came to our committee. Senator Hoyman actually came and presented on that. We passed the resolution. We included, because of what Danielle just said, to remember what you added about doing a study. Yeah. and creating doing more research before putting the cameras in. So S79 is actually Brad. I didn't even realize that is Brad Hoyman's bill to call for a moratorium to do more research on this particular thing. So I don't know if he added it or created this bill because of our resolution we did before, but I want to take the credit for that and say that it was our committee that actually did include that, and we got our message across. So now, Danielle, it was a tough conversation to have at that point in time. But
I appreciate you saying that. And for me, I felt so conflicted. I'm just like, you know, am I like, you know, in some way conveying that I don't care about my community, that I don't care about public safety? But I felt like, no, it's important to also think about, you know, all of the stakeholders, everybody that this could potentially affect. And that's, I guess, maybe my public health hat. I don't know, but I just felt like really uneasy about the fact that we didn't have enough data. And I'm so happy to hear that that was included. And then I guess the very last thing I'll just say, which Curtis already mentioned and that we're constantly talking about on this board, is, you know, investing in the community and not, you know, and working with the police. You know, I really love what Mutale said about, you know, it not being a like us versus the police. I love the fact that the NYPD are on these calls and we're able to work together, because, you know, I think with defund the police, a lot of people heard that and it's like, you know, get rid of all the police and people are just frantic. But I think it's not about taking away, you know, just removing all officers from the city, but thinking critically about, you know, who is going to be responding to the mental health calls, and like what resources do we have in our communities? How much money is going to schools, you know, and to programs that will keep kids off the streets and, you know, out of the criminal justice system. So, you know, the kid, I know this is a sensitive subject, but the person that ended up committing those crimes was 19 years old, you know? And so I just think, yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Danielle. Full circle moment. So OC Counter.
Yeah, I guess what's alarming to me from your presentation is that the system is incorrect 40% of the time. So I find it really hard to believe that, I'm not saying it's not true, but I'm saying I find it hard to believe that any city or state agency will vote for a technology that makes mistakes 40% of the time. And for me, what I'm looking at, like, you have to highlight it's not just that the mistake is 40% of the time, it's just that 40% of the time, the person or persons that commit the crime are outside 40% of the time. So do you understand what I'm saying? You understand?
I actually don't, but I can.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that if the system, the technology is incorrect 40% of the time, and the wrong people are getting busted for something they didn't do, that means that 40% of the time there are people still out. Those are the people that commit whatever crime that they did.
Who actually did the crime.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's alarming that 40% of the time there are people that commit the crime that's still out because that technology is not even close to.
I can respond to the first part, but the first part is that I'm more than happy to share the research on commercially available facial recognition and the fact that police forces do use it. So Curtis, I'll make sure that you guys have that study, because I don't know, I can't, like, it's science, and so you can either believe it or not.
No, I'm sorry, I think you got me incorrect. It's not that I don't believe what you're saying. All I'm saying is, you guys, when you presented for something to not accept, not to pass, not to allow for that system to be used, you need to highlight that 40% of the time the system is wrong.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
I'll let you finish, Mutalia, but I have a point here too.
And then the second part is, I used to go to a church in Brooklyn, and the pastor used to always say, the best thing a Christian can do is stay in their lane. So in the interest of staying in my lane, but I am as shocked that the wrong people are out, but my research doesn't focus on criminality. It focuses on race and technology. But you're right. If the wrong person is arrested, then the right person gets out. But we look at the exonerated 5. They did not rape that woman, and they got wrongfully arrested. Look at the wrongful arrest records that we have in this country. Wrongful arrest didn't start with this technology. In the film, the young man points out, this has been happening to Black folks for 400 years. The only thing that's different is that we're using a different tool. We're using.
Hey, Curtis, it's Charlie Bello. I just have a quick question. I'm just trying to ascertain what the research has dictated. So once you get a positive facial recognition, what happens after that? Because I know what our policy is. I'm not sure what your research has uncovered.
A positive match. So there is this wrongful positive, and the ACLU did a study using members of the Congressional Black Caucus, and they put them through police-used facial recognition systems, and it misidentified 23 members of the Congressional Black Caucus as people that had committed crimes in that data set. So the way the law is set up right now, we don't have any federal protection. We also don't have any statewide protection around this. And so what's happening is just wrongful arrest. I think it's Officer Bello.
Deputy Inspector.
Deputy Inspector Bello. I definitely want to put the handle on your name. But and so it really puts police forces in a bind, because if police forces are being asked to use this technology to do the identification, and they are policing, that's their job, they then shouldn't be held responsible for an inaccurate technology. What you're looking at is toxic marketing.
Right. But what I'm trying to ascertain is, because this is the procedure, how it works in NYPD, right? You submit someone for facial recognition, you get a possible facial recognition hit. It doesn't establish probable cause to arrest that individual. That individual is then entering the lineup, and the CV complaining is the one that picks this individual out. So, you know, I'm not, the technology is kind of like what leads to a possible ID procedure, but it doesn't establish an immediate probable cause. So what happens to that complainant that is IDing this individual as being the person that committed the act? You know, that's kind of like the question that I have, because it seems like what's being presented is that as soon as you get a positive facial rec, it immediately establishes probable cause, but that's not the case, at least with the way least the way that we handle it.
So what you're describing is excellent procedure. What we found in cases, and Meg, I'll let you in for sure, but the ACL, what we're finding in cases in Detroit and as close as New Jersey is that it's been used to establish probable cause. That's why you have to be so careful when you're pointing fingers like the police did this, the police did that. It's not supposed to establish probable cause, but that's the way that it's being used within some forces.
That would be more so the district attorney or or someone else doing that.
Right. So you're saying certain police departments, they'll utilize the positive facial rec hit as a possible. Got it.
Yeah.
Guys, can I please jump in here, Curtis?
Wait, one sec.
Because it's really relevant to this back and forth here.
Got it. Go for it, Alan.
All right. And you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, Inspector Bello. I respect the onerous task that you have here. But when you're talking to Mutali, she's a brilliant scientist who does a lot of brilliant research, but I'm a defense lawyer. And so there's a difference. And so if you take somebody and put them in facial recognition and you get a positive hit, right? Something that Mutali is saying is often up to 40% wrong. In order to get that person in a lineup, are you talking about a photo spread from, if you have a photo on file, or are you talking about an actual corporeal lineup with people?
Depends on the crime.
Right. Well, you know, in order to bring somebody in, to put them in a lineup, unless they're consenting, you have to have probable cause to take them into custody.
Right.
Okay. So you're using the facial recognition for probable cause to get them in a lineup. That, you know, from my perspective, and I want crimes to be solved. Just because I'm a defense lawyer doesn't mean I'm pro-crime. I don't go around promoting crime. But I wouldn't be in this meeting otherwise. But, and Officer Bella, and Inspector Bella, I wouldn't have called you up about the motorbikes that were right outside my window. But the thing is that what I'm hearing here is this is like the perfect storm, okay, on the issues that this meeting is about, okay, which is the changing perceptions on public safety and how policing can respond to that. And what I see here as a problem is something I've encountered in other areas. This is a forensic, quote unquote, forensic science, this facial recognition. And so what I hear from Mutali, and I hear from Meg and from Philip, who, thank you guys for a great presentation and a great video, is that there is a desire by both politicians and law enforcement, and an understandable one, it's always a hot button topic, to have new crime fighting tools. All right. It's what the people want. We all want crimes to be solved, but we can't jump the gun. And one of the problems I see is there's not been meaningful validation of the procedure, the facial recognition. If there's 40% false positives, that's useless. That's literally useless. And I agree with the question is, how did this get through as some kind of technology that can be used? It should never be used. But the thing that, if we're spending money, that I think we should focus on is a point that Curtis and others raised, which is you see these photos that come up, and I'm sure Inspector Bello, you and your colleagues in the police department are often pulling your hair out when you get video surveillance stills and they're grainy and you don't know who it is. But there are a whole lot better camera systems that can be employed. We've all seen really clear surveillance cameras, all right, from private systems.
And we've advocated for. We have to wrap up. You want to wrap up your final thoughts, Alan?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I think we need to look at the technologies that we can use that we know will work, because if you get a clear picture and you post it as a wanted picture, or you put it up on the news, I mean, we've seen that happen, and family members have reported their own family members. Friends have reported people they know. I know that guy who committed that robbery. When there's a good, clear picture, let's focus on what's good technology. And if they can perfect facial recognition and get it properly validated, but NYPD shouldn't want to use this stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and I would urge, you know what, I would urge, Mutali said she would share the research. Inspector Bello, let her share it with you and share it with your colleagues.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Alan. We have to move. I can't, I'm not a host.
I'm finished. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Alan. So just a few things, you know, we have our committee, we've advocated each year for better camera, the Argus cameras. They're very expensive. We have advocated for those in our budgetary process, and that's obviously something that's above our pay grade here. But I do want to take over a few other, there are a few things I'm noticing here. Bernard has a comment, and then Philip Ellison is going to wrap us up for the night. So I'm going to go with our last community comment, and that's going, and maybe some closing remarks from our guests. But Bernard, you want to pose your question?
Wait, yeah, Curtis, Meg was going to answer the other part of my comment.
Okay, got it. So Meg, you want to go first and answer your part, and then can we go to hold off, Bernard? We'll come back. We'll circle back around.
I just briefly wanted to amplify one thing that Mutale said, which is that as great as it would be to have additional training like Jackie is speaking to, and we should, that some of the results that we're sharing from the research are under laboratory conditions. So it's not necessarily the case that 40% of the time it's failing in the field. I'm not sure we have that number. What we know is that even under the best performing conditions, when we're in a lab and we're using photos, we are seeing that it fails not 40% of the time in general, but it actually is failing much more for Black individuals than it is for people of all racial groups. And that's part of the reason why it's getting passed and used in departments, is that this is going overlooked, the disparate performance for Black and Brown people. And I'm dropping in the chat a tool that tries to illustrate some of the intricacies of the research that Mutale will be passing along. Basically, you set a threshold, and that at that threshold, you can see whether there's a positive match or not. And you can manipulate the threshold to see how it does and doesn't arrive at a positive. And a lot of the time it arrives at false positives is the point. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so Bernard, your question, and I'll come back to you, Philip.
Okay, my question is there really a technology that's 100% accurate all the time? I mean, remember the old days when you, like on Law and Order, the person comes in and they sat down with the police artist and they did a sketch of the person that they saw at the crime? Or even eyewitness identification, from what I understand, is not very accurate at all a lot of times. And so the question is, you're trying to, I feel as though you're trying to take away tools from the police based on the fact that they're not perfect. And as Inspector Bello said, it's used as one of the tools. It's not used as the tool. They don't arrest somebody based on seeing the picture. I mean, they have pictures of people. They can't arrest them just based on a picture of them at a crime scene either.
Yes, they can.
You know?
Bernard.
All right. Alan, we can't have the back and forth. So Alan,
we'll talk offline.
Okay, we'll talk offline. Bernard, are you finished your statement, right?
Well, I just not totally. I'm just saying that yes, they can, but it won't stand up eventually. In other words, yeah, they could try to rush through something, but that's why they have certain procedures, and they do more than just simply using facial recognition.
Okay.
You know, and you know, that's all I can say.
Okay, thank you very much. So
I just, Charlie Bello, I do agree that if they're utilizing facial recognition to establish probable cause without a complainant, I do have an issue with that. I wasn't too aware of how other police departments handle facial rec. I know only how the NYPD handle it. And obviously we need more than just facial recognition positive hit to establish probable cause. But if there is a police department that's utilizing in that manner, I definitely would be a little eerie of that of that type of technology to be utilized for positive or probable cause.
Yep. Thank you very much. All right, so we're gonna try to wrap up for the night because it's 9:03. Philip, Ellison, you want to make you have something to add?
Yeah, I want to be clear here. There are part of this is we're seeing these cases happen around the country, and there was bias that existed in the physical world before the digital world, and we need to stamp out the bias in the traditional sense as well as in the digital sense. Actually, when we talk about the history, we have to connect it. In Manhattan alone, there's a professor, Dr. Simone Brown, that writes about the surveillance of Black people in the United States. And when you look at Manhattan originally, and more of a colonial time period, that, surveillance, Black people and other people of color would have to leave, carry a torch at night when they were being surveilled by torch, right? Now we're being surveilled in other tools. And so it's not just that it's the inaccuracy that there's the threat of. We don't want the threat to happen. When in summertime, we look at the video, when the gentleman Derek was, they flew a drone, they tracked him by facial recognition, they flew a drone to his window, et cetera. And the mayor was asked in the media the next day, the mayor couldn't ask, the NYPD couldn't tell who made that decision to use these tools. And when you look historically, even there's something called garbage in, garbage out. And I just use this as an example of putting measures of oversight. There is an instance, right? You're putting inputs into a system. So you're putting photos. There was an instance where police officers in the facial recognition unit were looking for someone. They couldn't find the photo, and they used a photo. They thought he looked like the celebrity Woody Harrelson. So they took a photo off Google and input that in the system, and they ended up arresting the wrong person. Now that no longer can happen, but that's an example is that we need to have robust conversation because we need to put the certain protections and oversights around these things. Companies, it's not just that it's the NYPD, a public, it's buying the vendors, right? Who's providing these tools? There's a company called Clearview AI that can pull off social media, can pull your pictures all off the internet, and was giving this to Staten Island District Attorney, right? And so it's not just the NYPD and how the probable cause is important and the processes and oversight, but it's also looking at these vendors, which Meg does a lot of work on, looking at the vendors and these private sector players that are selling these tools to NYPD. And so I essentially close in thinking, that it's not just the tools for policing, or it's if you have these tools, where is the video feed going to? Who has access to the video feed? All of those pieces are really important, and it's a reaction, and we've got to take a second to understand this fully. And this is a robust conversation. We hope to scaffold and learn with you. Again, March 10th, we're going to have a more robust conversation next week on facial recognition and biometric technology. And it's a beginning of looking how technology, again, is impacting, just people with disabilities, Asian Americans. It was talked about downtown on the housing piece. In Chinatown, Knickerbocker Village, years ago, they put in a facial recognition, so they use now. It only works, you hear from residents, it works for some of the people when the sun is right, it works. When it's not, the sun is not right, or it's a cloudy day, it's letting in the wrong people. It's letting in people who don't live in the building, or it's not recognizing Asian American faces as well. So it's a robust conversation. We appreciate the time today, and we appreciate the collaboration here with Curtis and your board, because we have to have the conversation. We can't wait, because companies and government are pushing things forward without the proper robust conversation and community engagement of what our future looks like. So I thank you so much today, and I thank Meg, and we'll be engaging Meg. Meg will be working with us in the office. And of course, Matali is a partner of ours, and we appreciate your concerns, and we hope to continue this conversation.
Thank you very much for our guest this evening. It's been a learning experience, which is what I wanted it to be, to kind of bring a full circle to many of the topics we've discussed, because obviously this impacts technology, it touches on all the issues within the umbrella, under the umbrella of reimagining or redefining public safety. We're going to continue to talk about this issue. We can't have the full conversation tonight, but there are so many more elements to the conversation that we hope to be able to build from, and also follow once it does become a piece of legislation in the City Council, to maybe think of ways of passing a resolution in the future, whenever it gets to that point. We're going to move forward in our last agenda item, which is mainly just discussing our April agenda. And I want to just reiterate, as I shared at the beginning of the meeting, I will not be present for the April meeting because my brother, who himself has been incarcerated for 10 years, is being released, and I am a happy camper. It's going to cause a lot of additional stress and anxiety to get him back set up, but I'm the big brother, and I'm going to do my best to support him, so I'm going to be away. But we did talk about, I've been speaking with the assistant chair, Danielle, about bringing in a guest to talk about the legislation on marijuana legalization, and Danielle recommended someone possibly from Drug Alliance. So I don't know if there are any other suggestions or comments about the agenda for next month in my absence, but if you have ideas on what you think the agenda can be or should be, please shoot that to Danielle and I'll still be helping with putting it together, but I would not be involved with managing the agenda that evening. But right now, the only person we have, the organization we have so far is Drug Policy Alliance or Drug Alliance? Drug Alliance. So are there any other comments about the agenda for April and the marijuana legalization discussion as it relates to public safety?
Oh, I'm sorry, Curtis, I don't have it about that, but I just would be remiss if I go off and don't say thank you. This was excellent. I'm just so glad I didn't hear nobody really bashing the police, and I'm so glad that people here understand the job and plight of the police, because then I would have had to change my whole, So this was really great, really great. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. So if you don't have any additional comments or suggestions for the agenda next month, like I said before, we can work offline on creating the agenda, and you can work with sending items or anything else you want to discuss next month on marijuana legalization and the impact in our community to our assistant chair, who's going to be the chairwoman that evening.
Oh, I was just going to add that we had also talked about potentially asking if there were any legislation items that we could address that night, and also having the owners of those items potentially join our conversation as well.
Yep. For the marijuana bill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. I think Brian Benjamin is one of the sponsors, so we can definitely reach out to them. All right. Cool.
Hi, this is Keltha McCauley. I just wanted to quickly ask, I came in a little late. I came in about an hour ago.
Okay.
I met with actually Sergeant Shevitz. He was very kind to meet with me at the station. Hello, Sergeant Shevitz. And we talked about a lot of crime on the subways and 181st Street in particular, and drugs, etc. So this discussion tonight didn't really touch on that as much, and that's fine because it touched on some very important subjects. But who can I actually get in touch to? I emailed Mary King, who's an inspector for Transit District 3, and now I'm hearing that, who else is the other one? Inspector Charlie Bello?
Yes, yeah.
And so how can I get in touch with people? I had some ideas, I had some concerns.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for joining. So the first part of our meeting is updates and questions and answers to the precincts. I think you missed that portion and you came along the second part of the agenda, which is only presentation. So I want to clarify that. You can get in contact with the precincts directly. You live in the 34th?
I live in the, oh God, I don't know. No, 34th precinct. And I'm new to the area.
Okay, got it.
34th precinct and District 3 Transit Police.
All right. Okay. So how about we start off with you sending me an email, and then I can direct you to the person, unless they're online right now. I don't, Chris. Is there?
Hey Curtis, I emailed her. I'm gonna have her email me, and then I'll get her in contact with the CEO of Transit, Mary King.
Okay, perfect. There we go. This is why he's now Deputy Inspector.
Yes.
Cool. All right. So is there a motion to adjourn? There is a motion. Danielle called for a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? OC Cameron, a second. All right.
Discussion?
I guess we're all in favor. Everyone's in favor of ending. So we're going to end our meeting. It is now 9:13 for the minutes, Mariella. It was a great meeting. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you. I'll see you not in April, but the month of May.
Oh, and congratulations to Chief Rodney Harris. Now he's the chief of department.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. I saw that article. That's also another great promotion. Yes. Congrats.